Right, I think we'll get started. It's just on 11 o'clock. So look, I'd like to offer a really warm welcome to our audience. We've got people from North Shore down to Christchurch. We've handpicked key clients for us for the launch of DENTACHAT, and it's really around us being able to provide some value to our key clients. The DENTACHAT forum, we thought, would be an important one moving forward. It'll provide opportunity for some local as well as international leaders in dentistry, but also primarily in the business world. We have got CPD approval for this course today for the Q&A with Zach. If you can just keep your speaker muted, would be really good. We've got the format today is going to be a question and answer format for about 35-40 minutes, and then use the chat function for any questions that you may like to pose to Zach, and we'll have it all wrapped up in under an hour. Anyway, I'd like to introduce Zach. He's got a very impressive CV. I've known Zach for about 6 or 7 years, and he's been working with Alluro for that period of time. But he started off with Deloitte as an auditor way back in the 90s. From 94 to 06, he was Flight Centre CFO for New Zealand, Australia, and North America. From 2006-10, he was Barker's MD and won Best Workplace in New Zealand 2009. 2010 to now, he started up Business Changing, which is a business advisory and mentoring service, and he's worked with over 1,000 companies in New Zealand and Australia. So he has massive influence in the SME market in New Zealand. 2014-15, he won the American Award for International Coach of the Year, which was outstanding. And he's the highest rated Google and Facebook business coach for New Zealand and Australia. He's now involved in also Nurture Change, which is a business retreat, 5-day retreat, and it's evolved into another 2 organizations called Nurture Her and Nurture 360. So his specialist areas are strategy, business planning, culture, customer experience, and finance. And it's fantastic to have you here, Zach, and really wrapped that you could join us today. So I suppose we start off with our current situation. You've been in contact with a number of high-profile business leaders as well as business owners over the past 7 weeks. So I'm just wondering if you could give us a general feeling on their response for really the next 6 months and then the following 6 months.
Sure, Mark. Hey, firstly, thanks for having me today. It's my pleasure to be on DENTACHAT and to share some things that I'm sure, well, I'm hoping people will find interesting and helpful. Hey, so good question. Yes, so I guess, what have I gleaned from the various, great leaders I've talked to and great business people and all that sort of stuff? I think the first thing is, it's interesting, but if you think about the COVID, let's call it a crisis, it's very interesting that the Chinese character for crisis is actually made up of 2 characters. One is danger and one is opportunity. And I certainly see both. There's a danger, which is obviously the health danger, which, obviously the dental community is very aware of. But there's also opportunity. And I guess it's, reality is this is making us all look at ourselves in a slightly different way for that new normal that we're expecting. So I think, in terms of where we're going to head over the next 6 or 12 months, I think most companies will get through the next couple of months. Obviously the budget came out yesterday in New Zealand, and that had some more support for very affected industries, which is not a bad thing, obviously. But, certain industries obviously have some major challenges. I won't say who they are because they're pretty obvious, but I've actually got clients who are actually having very, very good months. I appreciate the dental communities had to close down, obviously, for the last several weeks, so it has been challenging. But I can imagine there's some pretty massive pent-up demand. Well, I would hope so anyway. So it's going to be pretty busy, no doubt, for a while as well. But I think, the biggest or the most important thing you need to do for the next 6 or 12 months, which is applicable actually any time in business, is do your best you can to have a really strong pipeline, okay? That's really key. So what can you be doing proactively to keep your pipeline strong? And, I guess if I had to guess, how is the general New Zealand or Australian company going to go over the next 6 months? I think most will do okay. My real concern comes with 2021. Now, I appreciate that this crisis has had a lot quicker impact on New Zealand and Australia than the GFC did, back in 2008, 2009. That took about a year to actually really hit us. But there was very much a delayed impact. And I guess my concern is 2021 is actually going to probably be a challenging year. And that's backed up by some, smart people I talk to, like PwC chairmen of boards, that sort of stuff. Most people are thinking the real impact will be seen next year, because obviously the government subsidies and all that sort of stuff probably won't carry on forever. So I think it's a given that, unluckily, unemployment is going to hit 10%, give or take. House prices, commercial property prices, they highly likely are going to drop, even in a low interest environment. We could even have an oversupply of housing, given that net migration is likely to be the weakest it's been in, say, 30 years. And I do think, I'm sure a lot of people here have been through, whether it's the 08 times, whether it was early 2000s, the Asian crisis, the stock market, whatever. This is going to be very, very interesting and very, very challenging. And I guess, the New Zealand debt, as we know, is going to grow from 70 billion to 200 billion. That's going to have some challenges as well. So I think, it's whilst that all sounds a bit doomy and gloomy, and that's the greater reality in some respects, I think it's actually super exciting for business owners, whether you're in the dental community or any other business, because if you can be the best of the best, you're going to take market share and you're going to do really well. Because even if the economy shrinks 15% like they're forecasting, there's still 85% of the market out there. Well, that's a big market. How can you grow your market share, say 20%, to keep your sales the same? So as I say, I think, and it's great that you guys are listening, because obviously I'm sure that you're very good businesses. You've been handpicked to be on this thing. Make the most of being a good business and see how you can actually become a great business. And I think you'll flourish even during these challenging times. So that's it, Mark.
So really, how do you see New Zealand placed in coming out of what they call this great lockdown?
It's a good question. I do have my concerns about the government debt levels, but as we all know, compared to other countries, we're even at 200 billion, which is 50% of GDP, we're actually still looking okay. So we're lucky that we've had, let's call it 20 years of financial prudence of various governments. I guess it's going to be challenging, for the future, I guess you'd say generations. But I think, you want to make sure that you're not wasting money on willy-nilly spending. That's going to be really, really key in terms of how New Zealand will come out of it. I think, even if at a government level, I do have concerns about some of the things they're spending money on. And this is not a political thing. This is just like, there's a lot of money being spent. You've got to make sure you're spending it on the right thing. And I really worry about putting money into businesses that actually weren't very good businesses in the first place, because that's almost just like delaying the inevitable, that they're not going to survive. So I'm certainly hoping that there can be, I guess you'd say, a bit more stringent consideration of where the money's spent. I think, but we have some great opportunities in New Zealand. We can become probably the most sustainable food producer in the world, potentially. And I think as well, our exceptional COVID management from a health perspective, like, again, in a non-political way, it's been, pretty well managed, obviously. I think it becomes part of our country or our national story, just how we reacted to the Christchurch terrorist attack. We've done treaty settlements. We were the first to have ACC, the first welfare state, the first to give women the vote. I just think it goes into our story of being one of the best countries in the world to actually live, and in terms of being progressive as well. So, but I guess on a contra note, you might have read in the Herald today, there was an article, I think, about what happens if there's a second or third strike of COVID. And that's obviously what we don't know. So that's obviously a big risk factor. But I guess if I was to summarize how New Zealand's going to come out of it, I'd much rather be in New Zealand pretty much than any other country in the world.
Zach, you were talking about cash, and obviously, the old adage of cash is king. So what do you see, what levels of cash burn do most businesses have?
Yeah, certainly agree, cash is king. And if you think about, your business, the biggest stress you can have in business, there's lots of stresses, but there's probably no bigger stress than cash flow stress, okay? It's massive. So I think in terms of your question, Mark, in terms of, what's a normal, cash burn and all that sort of stuff in a business, the starting point would be, the approach of the business owner pre-COVID. And what I mean by that is some businesses have been financially managed, you would say, in a prudent way, where the business owner actually leaves plenty of money in the business so that it can weather unexpected storms. But a lot of businesses, they actually have the business owner take a heck of a lot out, as whether it's dividends, profit share drawings, whatever. So I think, first of all, in terms of how companies are going to get through this thing from a cash perspective, it comes down to, first of all, how much cash you had going into it. And I'm hoping that you were conservative and weren't taking everything out. Now, if I compare, if I try to work out what's a good amount of months cash to have on hand, you can look at the let's say, world leading companies like Microsoft and Google. Now, they're extreme. They literally have 3 years of operating cash on hand. Now, that's, most of us don't have that that luxury, obviously. Xero, I don't know how many of the dental people listening are on Xero, but Xero is obviously the accounting system. They have 8 months of cash on hand. There's another software company called PushPay. And the reason I'm talking about software companies is it's publicly listed information, so I can kind of work it out. PushPay is a church tithing system, and they have 2.5 months of cash, and they're worth in the billions. They were in the billions. I reckon normal would be kind of 3 to 4 months of cash on hand. Preferably you want to have 6 months, but I know that a lot of New Zealand SME businesses have literally only 1 or 2 months on hand. And certainly, even with the wage subsidy, as we all know, for most industries, it only goes through until June, whatever it is, for 3 months. You're not going to get the extra amount because it's highly likely you might not be down 50% in the coming months as well. So it is going to become a real melting pot of pain for some companies if you didn't head into COVID times with some decent cash. So as I say, I reckon 3 to 4 months is a good level you'd want to have, but plenty have only 1 or 2 months.
So given that, Zach, when things do start to get tight, should people consider redundancy first or borrow money?
I guess, first of all, whether you're the nicest person in the world or not, as a business owner, you've got to put on your big pants. And that means you've got to have guts to make challenging decisions. So first of all, and I say this in a business perspective, I'm not trying to be heartless, but I see this crisis as being an opportunity to actually lose your weakest team members. Now, when I say weak, I mean that they're either not a cultural fit, so they're kind of toxic. They might even be good at their job, but they just don't fit into your culture. Otherwise, they might be a cultural fit, but they're actually not very good at their job. So they're not really a profitable team member. So I think in the medium term, no matter how nice a person you are, it's going to be worth considering losing, let's call them ineffective or toxic people from your business. I think that's really, really key. So yeah, I suppose if they're a C or D player, then I'd consider strongly restructuring. However, if you do have a dream team in place, let's say you've got a team of total A players and it took you years to get there, you've put a lot of time and effort into them, then I think you have to have a think about whether you do borrow money to maintain your A team, because we all know it's really hard to get good people. So what I'd be saying is, if you can see times will come back to being good times sooner than later, then I would say in that respect, and if everyone is an A or worst case a B plus player, you would strongly consider borrowing some money to help fund keeping those people. But you'd actually want those people that you're keeping to know that you're borrowing money to keep them employed, so that they don't, go somewhere else. Like, you actually want to tell them, hey, I'm borrowing money so we can keep our team together. Can you please stay with me for the long term? So I think, if your A team you have today was really hard to get, and if it's going to help you to be more successful in a year or two in the future, then you would consider borrowing. But if you have any C or D players, put on your big owner pants, big leader pants, and I'd be considering a restructure very strongly.
Okay. So Zach, with your big leader pants, what style of leadership do you see is required now and for the future?
I'm going to answer it the opposite way. It's probably easier if I just answer it with what sort of leader I wouldn't want to be, okay, at the moment, okay? So as I say, the sort of leader you want to be is exactly the opposite of what I'm going to share with you. So the sort of leader I wouldn't want to be at the moment is, I wouldn't, if you're not showing care and concern for your team, then that's not a good thing. So you actually need to be a little bit more touchy-feely than normal at the moment. You need to be more vulnerable. And what I mean by that is, when a leader is vulnerable, normally your team will actually respect you more and they'll kind of feel that you're being open and honest more, and that you're believable as well. So, you know, we've got an example. Mark and I know this guy who's a client of mine, who's a great guy called Mark. And he has actually gone out to all of his staff members. He's got a team of about 10 or 12 people. And he's actually told them their cash burn, meaning he is saying, hey, I'm going to make up a figure here, but I've got 4.5 months worth of cash, or I've got 2.5, whatever the cash is. He's actually telling them, giving them a weekly update of how much cash they have in the bank to keep going forward. So he's being very vulnerable and very transparent, because, you know, he thinks that his team want to see that he is very open and honest. Certainly at the moment, you know, if you're going to be autocratic, that's not going to work. Now is the time for teamwork. Now is the time for getting ideas and for getting buy-in. That's really, really key. I think another type of leader that's going to struggle today is if you just lock yourself in a room and you're not really communicating much. You know, so at the moment, you actually can't over communicate. And I'd say that, you know, from now until the end of the year. So the more you communicate, the better. Something else that you don't want to be doing, and the best leaders don't do this, but, you know, many leaders turn a blind eye to things. Okay, they literally see something happen, but they turn a blind eye. If you want to be successful going forward, you have to not turn a blind eye. So, you know, if there's something happening in your business, again, put on your big leader pants and actually address it immediately. So don't turn a blind eye. And I think lastly, what I'd be doing, Mark, to actually, you know, work out what sort of leader you need to be in the times going forward, I would do a personal review of your own leadership style. Meaning, let's imagine that someone was going to come and replace you in your job as the owner, the boss, whatever you might be. You want them to have you want to have a think about what could they poke holes in terms of your leadership approach, and I guess you'd say even the way that you run your business, and brainstorm, hey, what could they poke holes in? And that will give you some really good pointers as to some areas that you could actually improve your own leadership ability. And I'm going to give Alluro a plug here, but, you know, Alluro is, from my perspective, you know, it's a very good client of mine, but Alluro is a very well-run business. And that comes down to, you know, having very, very good leadership. And it's not just Mark who's a good leader, but actually the management team as well. So you want to make sure that Mark asked the question about what does a good leader look like? So it's not just about you. You actually have other leaders in your business as well. So make sure that you're holding them accountable to be as good a leader as you are, or at least to be improving as a leader as well. But now is the time for leadership to step up, not turn a blind eye, and to be brave.
So as part of that whole leadership quadrant, what do you see as the essence of culture, and how important is culture at times such as now?
I mean, culture is so important because obviously, you know, every person listening to this has a team of people. You know, you've got a team. And without a great team, you're going to struggle. You know, you can't have a successful, let's say there's 10 people in your business. Let's say that you're the best in the world at what you do, but your other 9 people are not particularly good. Well, you're never going to reach all that you could be. And the way to get, you know, people engaged in your business, which means they will want to do a good job, you know, voluntarily, which is the best thing, is to have a great culture. So in my view, the essence of culture is the way that things are done around here. So effectively, culture is the habits and the behaviors of your people in your company. So your culture comes from things like having written core values. And when I say having written core values, I actually mean core values that are alive as well. Let me give you a couple of examples. I remember going to a building client 5 or 6 years ago, and the owner showed me his values on his wall. He had them framed. He actually had 56 written core values. And I said, hey, that's cool, but actually you can't have 56 core values. You've got to choose like 4, 5, or 6. So you've got to have a handful, but you've got to make them alive. Everyone listening has probably heard of Enron, which was the biggest corporate fraud case. They were in the oil industry in the early 2000s. Enron had 4 values, which were respect, integrity, honesty, and something else. Now, they did billions of dollars of fraud amongst the exec team, yet 3 of their values were honesty, integrity, and respect. They've got to be alive as well. So I think culture comes from having really well-defined values. And when I say well-defined values, they've got to be alive. The way to make them come alive is to actually define the behaviors that you want to happen within your business that will mean that the values are oozing and are alive. So let's say one of your values was, I'm going to make this up, treat your customers like a king or a queen or whatever. That's cool. People probably know what it means, but actually what behaviors in your business, what things do people have to do to actually bring that to life? So take your values, but actually create behaviors as well. That's a big part of culture. I guess culture as well comes down to, I've touched on being a brave leader, not turning blind eye. So that's going to be really key, because if you turn a blind eye, it has massive ramifications on your culture, okay? The best cultures I come across, they have open conversations, and you can actually put a different view up and you're not going to get crucified for having a different view. So I think that's really key. To have a good culture, you've got to have open and honest communication. And I think in summary, you've got to also have, beyond core values that are alive, you've got to have a great driving purpose and a driving vision, okay, of your company. So, you know, where are you going and why do you exist? And that's got to be baked into everybody 24/7, because that'll massively drive behaviors if everybody in your company is on board with the culture, heading in the same direction, trying to achieve those goals. And certainly, speaking of, you know, mission, which is your purpose, and your vision, your long-term vision, which is effectively your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal. What do you want to be the best at in the world? You can actually use those two things to answer a lot of questions in your business. So you've got to answer a question. Well, just think about, hey, does me answering that question in this manner, does that get me closer to achieving my vision and my purpose? And if it does, then that's a great thing. If it doesn't get you closer to your vision or your purpose, then obviously you probably shouldn't be doing that thing, because actually it's not taking you in the right direction. So culture is a key thing. And you would have heard people say that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Now, I don't fully believe that, because I love strategy as well, but I know that culture, along with having the right strategy, that is the way to be successful in business.
Yeah, there's quite a bit on that, the impact of culture versus strategy. If anybody wants to ask any questions of Zach, just use the chat function. The next thing we'd like to discuss is about workplace, and what does a best workplace look like in 2020?
That's a good question, Mark. I reckon that the last several weeks, and I'm not entirely sure how it's worked in the whole dental community, because I appreciate, you know, you've had tools down for obvious reasons, but there's been a lot of interesting cultural and behavioural shifts that COVID has enforced upon us from a workplace perspective. So I think, you know, the flexibility angle, flexibility is a really key part of being a best workplace. So what I'm hoping is that businesses can actually look back at the last several weeks and kind of pick the things that worked unexpectedly well, and arguably, you know, how do you keep them alive? So how do you not just think, oh, that COVID 7 weeks or whatever it was, that was strange and all that sort of stuff, but actually there were some good things that came from a workplace perspective. And I'm sure that there were some interesting cultural things as well. And of course, we all know, you know, we were talking online, all that sort of stuff. But I suppose the first thing is, a best workplace is going to take some positive learnings of the last several weeks and actually keep them alive, because there have been some positives. I think to have a good workplace in the 20th century, but in 2020, you need to have what I call rituals, okay? Rituals are things that you sort of celebrate, things that you do. So I think, you know, especially when times are hard, there's still something to celebrate. So I think you need to be really good at recognition, and that can partly be rituals where you know, if someone does something, you can publicly recognize them or whatever. But as a leader in a 2020 COVID workplace, again, don't just be all doom and gloom. There's positive things happening. So find those positive things and actually recognize your team. That's going to be super, super important. Obviously, caring for one another during these times is going to be very important. And I think what it's shown us is that everybody has a lot more happening in their life than beyond work. So I'm sort of hoping that a best workplace will be a little bit more open with people sharing what's actually going on in their home life as well. Because obviously what's going on in your home life can massively impact how you are in the workplace. And I think, you know, some other key things, I've talked about vulnerability, you know, just be honest and open and transparent with your team. So that's going to be a best workplace. There's a lot of transparency. And I guess the last thing would just be the normal stuff of having a laugh and having some collective fun. So what I'd be saying is, you know, we've all had 7 weeks of not seeing one another. I don't know if you do a social thing every month, every quarter. I'd just be doing a few more social things. And yeah, I guess I'd just be kind as a leader. But as I say, don't turn a blind eye to what's happening in your business. And also, you're still going to have to make some hard decisions. But I think, you know, there's some real opportunity to be a good workplace and you'll see the benefit, because your customers are going to love it. When your customers love it, that's good for your business.
Yeah, obviously those big decisions that have to be made, are going to cause stress levels, and they're obviously pretty high at the moment. So how do you personally manage your stress, Zach?
Well, I think the first thing is to actually recognize that as business owners, business leaders, we're not unpenetrable giants of life. We actually do have stress, which I know stating the obvious, and you actually do need to have a formal plan to reduce your stress or manage your stress. I was talking recently to Vic Crone, who's the CEO of Callahan Innovation, who I respect greatly as a leader. And she said her first learning through COVID times was actually that for her to be the best leader she can, I think she's got like 600 plus people in her team, she had to actually put time into creating a new routine for herself to actually be resilient. So I think the first thing you have to do to handle your stress is make sure you book in time in your diary to actually de-stress. So I don't know whether that's, going to the gym, going for a run, catching up with a friend, reading a book. But most of us, we're just so busy day to day, seeing clients, fixing their teeth, whatever we're doing. And it's literally from 8:30 to 6:30 at night. How can you actually book some time in your diary during the week to have a little bit of a chill time? So I think that's the first thing that I have started to do a lot better. For a long time, I was I was very unfit until about 3 years ago. Since school, for the next 20, 30 years, whatever number of years it is, I was really unfit. But about 3 or 4 years ago, as Mark said, we do these business retreats in Fiji or Australia, and part of it was, I was like, people were looking at me and I wasn't very fit. So I thought, far out, I better fix myself. So I actually got fit. However, I've had a terrible 6 months where I wasn't fit. The best thing for me, which has de-stressed me through COVID times, is the PT that I go to. He's been running group PT sessions at 7:15. I was going to cough. Excuse me. Every morning for the last 6 or 7 weeks. I've been working out 5 times a week. It's ridiculously good. So, I think, you need to be active to manage your stress. And you also need to get really good sleep. So how can you build in that time so you actually have no excuse but to take time out of your business and to de-stress? And it's just, you have the power, as simple as that. And I think as well, the last thing I'd say there, just to de-stress, Mark, is it's taken me a long time to work out my perfect routine during the day. I would normally see clients of late at 9:30, 12:30 and 3:30. I see clients for normally 2 hours at a time, and I have, a bit of pre and post time to whatever. I've realized for myself that doesn't help me to be fit because I'm too busy to go to the gym. I literally can't go to the gym if I see clients at 9:30, 12:30 and 3:30 because I start working early, I finish later on. So I was trying to take Mondays and Fridays off. And when I say take them off, I'm not saying I was taking them off. I was trying not to have clients on a Monday and Friday to kind of catch up on stuff. Where I finally got to through COVID is, for me, my perfect routine is a 7:15 workout for 45 minutes. Then it's going for a walk for an hour or so. Then it's getting into my morning. For me, stress, I don't like having a stressful morning. So I've worked out that I'm only going to see clients now at 12:30 and 3:30 every day from, Tuesday to Friday. I still won't see clients on a Monday, but it's taken me so long to actually work out what routine works for me. So I think to de-stress, work out what personal routine works for you and then bring it to life and have the discipline to see it through, and you will be a lot less stressed, as simple as that, by having a routine that is not stressful.
Zach, you said before how much you like strategy. How do you, in times of such uncertainty, how do you actually go about creating strategy?
That's a good question, Mark. I mean, certainly there's a lot more short-term focus, obviously, in the meantime. But in my view, you always need to have a long-term view of what success looks like for your business, okay? And when you know what the long-term view of success looks like for your business, it helps you to actually formulate the right short-term to medium-term strategies for your business. So I think nothing has actually changed here. I think you still have to be incredibly aware of where you're heading in the long term, and that will obviously help you to make some decisions. So I think what it does mean is your long-term view of success, it might have been pushed out 6 months, a year or two through COVID, but it's still probably, you're still heading in the right place. It just means you're going to take longer. So I think once you're clear on the long term, then for the moment, I think it's a matter of emerging in 18 or 24 months' time in the best possible shape so you can then carry on to hit your long-term goals. So I'd be doing a couple of things today. I'd be working to a 90-day plan consistently, and I'd get everybody in your business, so all teams, all people, working to like a 90-day plan. So what are their main focuses? What are their main projects? And I'd have every person from a total business level down to an individual person working to a top 3 to 5 focus points in that 90 days, okay? And you'll be able to hold them accountable to actually make progress there, and then you'll reset them after 90 days. So I think, you know, there's some 90-day sprints. And the second thing I'd do is, as part of that 90-day sprint, I wouldn't all just be short-term focused. I would still be doing some things over the next 90 days that will actually make your business stronger in the next, in 2 to 3 years' time. If you think about it, you know, what is one reason that your business is not, let's forget about COVID for the moment, but let's go back to, say, February before COVID. Let's say, hey, what is one reason or 2 reasons why your business was not more successful in February 2020? Well, I can say hand on heart that everybody, the reason, one reason you weren't more successful a couple of months ago pre-COVID was because 2 or 3 years ago, you could have actually been doing some strategic things that would have positively impacted in the medium terms, like in February. Some things take a while to show through, but the sooner you start doing them, the sooner you get the medium term impact. So as I say, you know, you want to be short-term focused, but you want to make sure you're still doing things that actually, you're not going to see a short-term payoff, but you're definitely going to see a payoff in 2 to 3 years. So I think that's really, really key. And I reckon as a leader, and I appreciate, you know, a lot of people listening are probably on the tools and are really busy, etc. Make sure you can find a few hours a week to actually put time into doing the things that will make you more successful in 2023, 2024, 2022. So yeah, as I say, so strategy is still relevant. However, of course, we do have a shorter term focus, but make sure you're still very aware of your long-term strategy and do the right things to get there.
So in terms of 90-day sprint, what opportunities do you see for businesses out there?
Well, and whether this is 90 days or perhaps even 6 months or whatever, I think the main opportunity is really simple. And what I mean by that is it's just to be the best company of your type in your industry. So let's say that you are a dentist and you're in, I'm going to make this up, Petone in Wellington. And let's say that there's 7 dentists in Petone, which I'm just making up. What your challenge is you need to work through how you can be the best dentist out of those 7 dentists in Petone, because if you are the best, you're going to take market share, as simple as that. So even if less people can afford, arguably, let's say, to go to a dentist, if you're the best of the best, you're still going to pick up more business. So I see a lot of opportunity, not necessarily in the growth of the market, because as we know, we are going to probably have some interesting times for a year or two. But I see the opportunity is to just be a better business so that you can actually take more market share, which will then protect, I guess you'd say, your overall financial situation. I also think there's some really good potential productivity gains on a per person basis. So, you know, even Zoom, I appreciate with dentists, you know, the Zoom is a bit more challenging, obviously, but I'm sure it still has some relevance in some respects. But there's going to be some sort of productivity gains you can actually get in your business as well. So I think have a good look at that. And I also see flexibility and I guess you'd say culture and engagement of staff as a big opportunity. So I would suggest that everyone listening, you wouldn't be able to say hand on heart that your culture is perfect. So the opportunity there is to make your culture better, because when you have a better culture, your customers are going to be happier, and that's a good thing for your business because you have long-term customers, more word of mouth and all that sort of thing. So I think in summary about the opportunities, Mark, I would sum it up as saying the biggest opportunity is the business owner themselves stepping up their leadership and stepping up the leadership of the other core people in the business and doing the right things and literally becoming the best in your little marketplace, and you will flourish. There's a lot of opportunity. Nice
place, Petone.
Yes.
There's so much pressure on business owners, managers and leaders to pivot right now. How can reinvent themselves? How do you actually go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this pivot word has come up a lot during COVID times. I think the starting point for working out, when I say reinvent yourself, you don't need to fully reinvent yourself. However, there's a little bit of reinvention, no doubt, needed to flourish in the longer term. The starting point is, what are your future customers going to want and what are they going to need? So that's the first point. And that's how you pivot. You actually think about what are your customers going to need or want that is a little bit different to today in a year or two. So I start by talking to your customers. That's a big thing. And I'm going to talk about it soon, but I do believe that many dentists or dental practices can have better customer relationships. And we'll talk a bit about that later. But I definitely start by talking to them. A great example is Don Braid, who's the CEO of Mainfreight. Now, I don't know if you know, but Mainfreight is the 4th largest company in New Zealand. And Don Braid is my business hero. He last year won the Deloitte CEO of the Decade in the Management Awards. He literally won the best CEO of the last 10 years. He's a legend. Now, he's like a mentor to me. And what he told me recently was he spends 35% of his time as the CEO of Mainfreight, this global business in many countries worth billions of dollars. He spends 35% of his time with customers. Now, the reason this is at the coalface. So he's talking to his customers. He's not just on the tools with his customers, he's actually talking to them. And the reason he does that is he wants to, first of all, of course, know that Mainfreight's doing a good job, how they're going. But most importantly, he actually wants to know where his customers are going. What are their challenges? What are they thinking? Where are they going in the future? Because that will help him and his Mainfreight team to actually come up with the right pivots and the right strategies for the future to meet future customer needs. I think as well with pivoting, I would also get your greater team involved, because your greater team will have some fantastic ideas. You've got some smart people in your business, so give your team the opportunity to actually come up with some ideas on how you can pivot. I also think if you want a really good starting point, and I'm sure there's plenty of these in the whole dental industry, you want to consider what ifs. And what I mean by that is, imagine if you could do something that was super difficult and that nobody else in the industry, in the dental industry, could actually currently do. So what are the impossible industry challenges, let's say in dental, that would make you truly world-class if you could actually solve them? And if you identified those things, then you can actually create what I'd call like some R&D, research and development teams internally, and give them some of these challenges as projects. Now, I appreciate everyone has a day job. It's not as if they can suddenly go and spend 3 weeks answering this problem. But if you give them like a 6-month project to come up with a few answers, you're going to be astounded with, wow, that's a really good idea, actually. I also think in terms of pivoting, if you can give your staff a few minutes a day, or even half an hour a week, if you pay them just to go and have a coffee with themselves to ponder what's going well and what's not going well. Everybody's just so busy normally, but they don't have time to, go and contemplate their navel. Everyone listening would have used a yellow sticky by 3M, those sticky things. A yellow sticky idea came from an employee at 3M, who are obviously a massive global success. Now, 3M, they mandate that 20% of their time, so 8 hours a week, 20% of 40 hours, that you actually need to do R&D, creative thinking. You're not meant to do your job. Your job's only 4 days a week. You have a whole day a week to just go and contemplate your navel and think of things. So I think to pivot and to, be more successful, I think you want to give your team a little bit of time just to have time to think about things. That's really, really key as well. So I guess in summary, the sooner you start thinking about pivoting or your innovations, the sooner it's going to make you the best business in your market. And I'd be doing it today, not next year.
So Zach, just following on from that, what else do you think our dental community can do to improve customer experience and really stand out from the crowd?
That's a good question. If I was to top of mind, just have a bit of a think about what I would be suggesting the dental industry could do better at, and it would make you to really stand out from the crowd, which is going to be a good thing for your business because that means better sales, better profit, etc. Now, this is in no particular order because it says it comes to my brain. But so first of all, like my dentist that I go to, he's actually good, okay? I'm going to say he's good. Like I go to him because I like him. And he has actually taken the time to build a relationship with me. But I think a lot of the time, dentists, from what I hear from my friends, my family, whatever, because you're so busy, And because when you're doing your dental routines on people, they can't talk, there's not a great relationship really built. So I think the first thing you actually need to do as a dentist is build better customer relationships. Now, there'll be many, many ways you can do that, but that would be the first challenge I would put to you, is how can you actually build a more personal relationship with your customers? Because and I get it, you've got half-hour slots, you're busy, I get all that. And I appreciate that might not change, but there will still be other ways that you can still build some sort of relationship with your customers, because the better relationship you have, the better the chance they're going to be with you for the next 20 or 30 years. So that's the first thing, is build better relationships. Now, in terms of just some random ideas that I would be doing, whether it's dental innovation or it's better customer experience or standing out from the crowd, I think that dentists could probably do a better job of helping, when I say customers, helping people to be better aware of their teeth habits at home. I don't know if there's like an app or a diary, but I think, it's weird, because like as a dentist, you let's say you see your client once a year. It's an annual thing, but there's not much of a day-to-day relationship. So I think, as I say, that's both a better relationship with your customers, but also how can you be in their life more? So I think that would be a good challenge. One idea I had was, could you benchmark your teeth? What I mean by that is, if I go to my dentist, could he say to me, hey, for a 49-year-old person, your teeth are in the bottom 20%, and I'm making that up. Hopefully they're not that bad, but I'd be like, oh, okay, that's not very good. So I do think dentists could probably do a better job of sharing with their customers the true state of their teeth. I also think that as part of the relationship thing, it's almost like you should almost have like a 5 or a 10-year plan for your customers, meaning sit down with them and say, hey, this is where you're at today. Over the next 10 years, this is likely what we're going to have to do. And almost get a long-term commitment, because that would be really good as well. So as I say, I don't think my dentist does that, but I would love to know, where are my teeth headed over the next 10 years? The dream of any business is to get recurring income. Now, I appreciate as a dentist, and maybe there are some who do this already, but you'd normally just get one-off income because you charge $3,000 for this, or $500 or whatever it might be. I reckon that there's a bit of innovation potentially in the business model side of things. So how do you get me paying you $100 a month for the rest of my life, and it actually works in your favor, but I don't feel like I'm being ripped off because I know I'm going to be looked after? So I think, have a think about how you can build in a recurring income. I think from a customer experience perspective, it can be quite hard, especially for a new customer, but to book in to actually see a dentist. So how can you make it easier online and all that sort of stuff? That's pretty obvious. Even how can you help a customer prepay as well? And I think as well, what else would I do? I would also, let me just think about it. I think it's just, take your customer through their own personal journey and sort of get them to better understand what's really happening with their teeth. Because as I say, whilst I go to the dentist from time to time, I don't have a long-term plan. So I think that'd be really key. I reckon you could be more open as dentists with information. Like dentistry seems like a bit of a dark art to me. And I think you could kind of demystify it in the eyes of customers. Like, maybe share the photos that you take of teeth, share the x-rays, kind of that sort of thing. And I also think something else you could do is probably be slightly better at sales. I know it's not to do with customer relationship, but I think receptionists have great potential to be selling things or closing a rebooking or whatever, but I don't think a lot of them are probably that good at it. So I think there's some really good selling skills opportunities for dentists as well. But I guess in summary, build their relationship and actually create a long-term dental care plan for customers. And then you as a dentist can actually hold people accountable to live up to that, because it's what you have to do to be healthy. So as I say, I think it's, build that relationship, because as I say, I think most dentists probably aren't that good because of the fact that it's in and out. So how can you build a relationship beyond seeing someone for half an hour?
Yeah, some good points there, Zach. Just two final questions. And if anybody does have any questions for Zach, just use the chat function. Second last question. What's the best bit of business advice you've ever been given?
That's a good question. Now, there's always one thing that comes to mind when I'm asked that. And I actually can honestly say, Mark, I'm not sure if it was advice I got or if it was just something I learned over time. So I'm not sure, but this is a really key thing I believe in. And what it is, it's you need to, in business, have a great understanding of the true profitability of what you do. So I mean your offerings, like your services, your products, or whatever. And you need to know what sort of customers and what products or services are the most profitable. Because a lot of businesses, whether you're a dentist or mechanical, groceries, or whatever you might be, you put time into things that actually aren't that profitable. So I think to be uber successful in business, a lot of it comes down to having a great focus on the most important things, and also having a great focus on the most profitable things. So I'm a big believer in getting into a bit of detail to truly understand, okay, a crown might be my most profitable thing, and a filling might, I obviously don't have any idea what's profitable in the dental industry or not, but there's going to be certain things that are more profitable. So I think, and also types of customers, and that will help you with your marketing, try to attract more of the most profitable customer, but also to get well known for the certain services that are the highest profit, because you don't want to be well known and you don't want to be known as being the best at the service that is the lowest profit margin. So I reckon understand really well your profit, where it comes from both an offering perspective and also customers, and put your time into making more and getting more business in the most profitable areas.
Okay. So just in summary, what are the top things that dental business owners need to focus on now, or just business owners in general?
I suppose the first thing is, how do you turn COVID into an opportunity? And what I mean by that is, are you moving fast enough? Are you adaptable enough? Are you reacting the right way? So I think the first thing is, and again, I'm sure that no one listening is like this, but if you're the sort of business owner who is poor me, this sucks, etc., and lets life happen to them, then you're not going to be successful. So, yeah, COVID sucks, but take it as an opportunity. You look at Alluro, like I know Mark and the team have done a great job with PPE. Like, they're the leader in PPE and dentists, which is fantastic, because they've actually taken it by using COVID as an opportunity and got really proactive. So I think, what's your equivalent? How can you turn COVID into an opportunity? I think we've seen massive pivot in digital the last several weeks. Digital was always going to be important for various businesses, but I think it's been fast tracked. So I suppose a challenge for yourself in dental is, how can you use digital for good for your business, with communication, with customer relationships, with information. So I think look at digital. I'd also personally, I'd look at how well I've actually run my dental practice the last several weeks. Now I appreciate you've been closed, but you've actually been a leader, so I would be critiquing how well you've actually led the business, and get true feedback from your people, and critique yourself and see what your learnings are. I'd definitely be communicating more with the team, and that might even go down to communicating with your customers. So I got an email from my dentist a day or two ago saying that they were open. That was great. I know I don't actually need to go, but at least I know that they're open. But I think, yeah, how can you be proactive with communication? I think you want to make sure going forward for the next while that your team, your individuals, are very aware of what their true priorities are. What I mean by that is, yes, they've got their day job, and if that's what they do all day, every day, fantastic, that's their priority. But I think you want to make them aware of what their little projects are that are going to make you into a better business. You want to have your people involved in that. I'd also, as a dental owner, I appreciate again that most people are probably still on the tools. How can you free up some time? The only way for you to become a greater business is for you as a business owner, and also for some of your key people, to have a bit more spare time to actually make the most of both opportunities and to do a lot of business thinking on your business. So I would be looking at, how can you delegate to free up some time? There might be things that you do that you shouldn't be doing. So how do you get rid of those things? Let's say I challenge you, everyone listening, to find 4 more hours a week, and I don't want you working 4 more hours. I want you to find it from within the time you're working now. How would you find 4 hours, and what would you do with that 4 hours to make it super valuable? I guess I'd also obviously be updating the cash flow forecast very regularly. You want to have it at least 6 months, probably more like 12 months. So I'd definitely be updating my cash flow regularly, because it's pretty key. Other stuff, I would be thinking about how I can grow my market share, which I touched on earlier. So sales ability is going to be really key, and that's a function of both marketing and sales. But don't just, I've obviously dealt with a lot of dentists in the past from a business perspective as well. And one of the things that strikes me in the dental industry is many dentists feel that they have limited ability over growing their business through sales. Don't be one of those dental owners. You have so many things you can actually do to grow your business. So yeah, get proactive there. Other stuff I do, this is a really key one. I would create a list of the hard questions that ultimately need to be answered in your business. So over the next few weeks, I would actually make a list of everything that either frustrates you, confuses you, or it's an opportunity you're not making the most of or could make more of. What are those list of questions you wish you could answer? And then give yourself a time frame to answer some of them, and you'll be amazed at what you come out with. I guess in summary, just a couple of other things. I definitely look after myself. So you've all worked, no doubt, when I say you've worked pretty hard, you've had a lot of stress. How can you get an extra day or two off over the next few months if you need to? Because you actually need to look after yourself. Okay, so book some time off, have a bit of a chill time. And I think in summary to your question, Mark, what would I be doing? The best thing you can do is just be the best company you actually can be in your part of the market, and that will set you up for good. So, you know, what parts of your business are not great? I mean, good's okay, but you want to be great. You want to go from good to great. So identify those things and then come up with a plan. But the main thing is there might be 20 things to do. You can't do 20 things at once. So prioritize through to, you know, what's the most important 2 or 3 things of those 20 things I can do? Do those things first. Don't do number 19. You're not going to get the biggest bang for your buck. So I think, you know, overall, I think it's exciting times. And as I say, you know, with some of those ideas I was sharing about the dental industry per se, how we can have a better customer experience or whatever, I really feel there is some great room to improve. And I'm sure that a lot of people listening are already doing quite a few of those things that I made up on the spot, obviously. But I think there's some great opportunity to grow your customer relationships and to just be a bit more proactive and to be a bit more in the life of your customers day to day rather than just once a year.
Hey, fantastic, Zach. There's some really, really good points there in terms of, you know, what can be done immediately, but also that 90-day sprint. There's no questions up on the chat, but if you want to unmute yourself, if you do have a question that you'd like to ask, just unmute yourself now. And if you want to ask Zach. In the meantime, the CPD points for today's session is 72, 71, 95. So the way that the process works with webinars is we will actually register you, send that through to the NZDA. We've got a list of people who are attending. It'll go through the NZDA, and then if you just want to log on and confirm your attendance there, that would be cool. So are there any questions that anybody would like to ask? Okay, well, if there's no burning questions, I'd like to thank you for your attendance today at our inaugural DENTACHAT meeting. We'll be in touch within the next month on our next session once we've organised the next speaker. But Zach, I'd really like to thank you today for your time and your wisdom. One thing that I really admire about Zach is that all the business clients that he has, he's worked with over 1,000 businesses in Australia and New Zealand. They become a part of his business as well, and he treats it as their business, and it's a fantastic thing that he does. He's a huge influence in terms of SMEs in Australia and New Zealand. But I suppose just in summary, the 3 things that I took out of today was really about that selling ability and improving on that, building a more personal relationship, and also the leadership required and leadership and culture required for moving forward. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, Zach. Great to see you, and we'll be in contact. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Mark. And hey, guys, just one last thing in closing. Yeah, you all have the ability to be both a better business leader and a better business. So it's just, you know, you taking that by the horn, so to speak, and making a bit of progress. You have the power. So hey, wish you luck and have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Thanks.
Thanks, Zach. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
No, you're still there, Zach.
Oh, sorry, hang on. Sorry, what was that?
You still there?
I'm still there. How are you, Dave?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate.
Good. Where are you based?
Auckland.
Auckland, yep. Oh, cool.
Are you based in Auckland, hey?
I'm in Auckland, yep. I'm in Auckland as well, yeah.
Column in the paper.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, yeah. I enjoy writing from time to time and saying various things. It's always been a lot of fun, so.
Must be tough, though, writing a column all the time.
Well, I did that. Yeah, I mean, now I'm sort of like, I commentate in the Herald. I'm going to make this up once a month, so not much. It's just I say a few things. But I used to write in the Sunday Star Times for about 3 years. And man, that was sometimes, it was like, what am I going to write about this week? I've got no idea. It was really quite funny because, let's say I wrote 150 stories. I'm making up a number. Even 100, whatever it was quite challenging eventually. But often you came across everyday things and you thought, that's a really good example. Just more like you walk into a shop or you go to a dentist or something and you think, oh, actually, I could write about that. It's like a really good example of what to do or what not to do, stuff like that.